Good afternoon, my friends. I wish that wasn't such a mess behind me and you didn't have to see what a mess I live in. It's kind of embarrassing, but I'm too lazy to fix it. I'm going to talk to you today about just a few things that are on my mind. About we're in the coronavirus shutdown. Today is April 14th or 15th or something like that. I'm sure the camera's recording it. And I live in northwest Missouri, so the shutdown here is I don't know how actively people are really pursuing it because I don't go out. I live here on this little farm, and today was the first time. I think the first time in April I've been off the farm. I had to go. I finally ran out of some staples that I have to have around so I can eat. So I had to go participate in the 21st century briefly, but mostly I've just stayed here with my uh, beloved elderly wife and my donkeys and my dogs. Um, and It's been strange. I participate heavily in Twitter. Probably most of the people who are watching this came here through Twitter, and so you know that. And I don't watch any TV, and I don't. I listen to two TV programs, audio only, almost every day, and that's the Deadline White House, Nicole Wallace's program, and the Rachel Maddow show. And read what I can find of, like I read the Washington Post, and sometimes New York Times things are free. I no longer subscribe to the New York Times because uh, I have moral objections to the way they do business, um, and so I don't want to give them my money. Um, I don't think the New York Times fully respects the concept of empirical fact, and that's a concept that's important to me. So when I read the crap that they publish, I know that they're not interested in facts. So anyway, overall, throughout all I pardon my rambling, throughout all the various uh, media information sources that I participate in, which I admit are few, um, I get the impression that things are both broken down and still working. And my trip today to the Walmart showed me that things are mostly still working. I mean, I could only get one bottle of unsweetened applesauce, one big jar of unsweetened applesauce. There was a ton of sugar filled applesauce there, um, and cinnamon and sugar filled applesauce there. But the place where the unsweetened applesauce was supposed to be, there was only one. I find that interesting. They're trying to stuff that sugar down our throats even if we don't want it. It's the most addictive drug I've ever indulged in is white sugar, and I still fight it. So um, anyway, in Richmond, about half the people are wearing masks and about half aren't. I wore a bandana in the fashion of an old-fashioned cowboy, with the point hanging down. Um, I stayed as far away from everybody as I could. I wore my old greasy leather gloves, uh, based on the theory that if soap will dissolve the lipid envelope of the virus, uh, petroleum-based hydraulic fluid and lubricating greases might also, and that's kind of what's on the palms of my old work gloves. But they're in the sink. Next time I do anything over there, I'll wash them with soap and water. I'm concerned about the virus. And, I'm elderly, and my lungs are moderately compromised, although I function. Um, and I think that sooner or later, pretty much everybody's going to have to get it uh, and either live or die. But I'm trying to postpone my turn as long as I can. But unless I can avoid becoming contaminated, if say that the very best guess goes, and in 18 months there's a vaccine, I think that's beyond unreasonable. But say that, yeah, I'd jump in line. I'd be first in line if they'd let me be. I'd have it. But meanwhile, much of the public conversation is about reopening the economy, reopening the country, returning to normal. There are a number of different phrases. There's, on the one hand, there's an admission that we won't return to normal. On the other hand, to the extent that people discuss what we should do to get out of here, it is not. I only hang out with liberals, progressives, Democrats. That's the only worldview I'm interested in having conversations with. I mean, I know the other one exists. I've read what they say. I don't want to talk to them. So at least not about that. I mean, I know I've played music all night with somebody who had different political opinions than I do. I just don't want to discuss life with them. So anyway, the general thing that most of the liberals seem to hope for is to more or less restart 2019 with fair ground rules. I think that people need to realize that 2019 was what created this pandemic. And it was also what was causing climate change. And all, without exception, of the people with whom I hold conversations agree that climate change is an existential threat if and when that is the topic. If we're talking about climate change, everyone agrees that it's an existential threat. We all know that this breakdown has made a really big difference ecologically already in 1/4 of 1 year, and really in 1/8 of a year, because we didn't really start shutting down the economies when the virus hit. 2 months, air's cleaner everywhere. Carbon emissions are just down drastically. And the question everybody's asking is, how do we get back where we were? And that's the wrong question. The question we need to be asking is, how do we have a decent living where we are? How do we get out of our houses and back into talking to one another and visiting with one another and interacting with one another and getting our immediate needs like food and clean clothing and decent clothing and stuff that you got to have, and don't count the cars. Let's leave that aside for a minute. Because the only reason the cars are a need is because they are between us and all the other stuff. We can't have our food unless we drive. We can't buy clothes unless we drive. Okay, so that's where the cars are there. The cars aren't there because we need them. They're there because we need the other stuff. Everybody's come to a dead halt as near as possible. Those places where they've chosen not to do that, it's just like Jim Jones writ large. It's mass suicide, except it's slow, you know. But it's not as slow as the suicide of climate change. We can't afford to go back there. I understand that most people think the way to get out of where we are is let's get back to where we were, where everything was running, and then we'll go back to worrying about how to fix climate change. The stuff that was running is what causes climate change. You can't run it and not have climate change. We have just observed that in action. We shut it off, the climate change almost stopped. We can see easily from here what to do. It's slow down even further to get climate change stopped the rest of the way. And we can do it. What people need, what I would bet you, whoever you are that is listening to this and watching this, mostly, if your refrigerator's full and your cupboards are full and your closet's got clean clothes in it and it's a comfortable temperature in your house, mostly you're okay with that. That's about all you really need. Okay? We need to just back off the toys and say, this is what I really need. And I posted a thing the other day on Twitter where I said that I really feel sorry for people in cities now. Because living here on my small holding, my life is not reduced by at all. You know, I go out every day, I get my animals up, I feed them, I do something or other with them that furthers my objectives in the world and that I enjoy doing. I go around here and I'm trying to make this land produce more food for everything that's alive. That includes me, but it is not exclusively me. I want it to produce food in a way that every kind of creature there is will benefit from it. So I'm planting mostly chestnuts because that's a staple. If I have chestnuts, if I had to, I could live 100% on chestnuts and water. It wouldn't be a very good life. It wouldn't be a very nourishing diet. But it would keep me alive, and if I needed to get through a year on it waiting for things to get better, that would be fine. The trouble is I didn't start soon enough. I didn't plant all these stupid chestnuts till last year and this year. They're not stupid, I'm stupid. And it may be too late, and it may not. But if anybody asked me what to do, I had a conversation with a friend in New York City yesterday, and she, what to do. And implicit in the question is how do I have everything I have in New York City and not be in grave danger? And the answer is I don't know. It may be possible. But the farther you are on any given day, the more steps that the minimum requirements of life, like food and water, the more different systems that have to operate in order for you to get those things, the riskier your life is. It's inherent. It's obvious. And it was obvious before this pandemic came that the machine we're living in is easily disrupted. And the objectives now appear to be to put money into the businesses that are not performing any function in our current economy, in order that when the economy comes back, the old one, when we get back to 2019, they'll still be there for us to go to work at. And I'm thinking we're probably not ever going to get back to 2019. I'm thinking we're going the other direction, and 2021 comes next, and nobody knows what that looks like. Um, but what we things are still on a downward slide. The longer it is since that we minimize the motion of people and money, it's like parking a car out behind the barn. You know, you can take your pickup truck out and park it behind the barn and say, I'm going to, this thing needs a little work, but I'm going to get back here tomorrow and drive it out here where the tools are and fix it. And you park it back there, you know, and like 3 months later, you could still go out there and start it. And 6 months later, you could go out there with something else and jumper cables and probably start it. And a year later, it'd probably be a day's work to get it started because you'd have to clean this and that would have broken and that would have rotted through. This is how these companies we're trying to keep alive are going to be. The idea of capitalism is that you look around you at your environment and you say, there is a need that is not being served. And you serve that need. And as a reward for that, people give you the necessary resources to live. That's the that's the bottom line idea. And at that level, you know, it's a good idea. I approve of it. I think it's almost inherently human. And what we did, we invented this thing called money that enables us to give one another resources without having to have the exact thing they need in our pocket at that time. You know, so like if you come here and you don't need any chestnuts and mine are growing, which is not yet the case, then I can give you money instead. So that's how this whole capitalism thing started. Okay. Now, everybody knows it's a long way from that now, and it still was in 2019. But the rest of that idea is, if the need goes away, you have to think of another one to fill. And if the environment in which you live does not provide you the opportunity to do your business, then you can't do your business. Now, we have a bunch of industries out there right now today that the environment in which we live does not permit them to do their business. And the conversation, especially at the governmental level, but the conversation overall is, okay, this is not a real environment. This is somehow, this virus is a wild card that wasn't supposed to get played according to the rules of the game we like it. This virus wasn't supposed to happen, so it's not a natural event or a normal event. So we will not adhere to the realities of capitalism and say, okay, if you've got a customer, do business with him, and if you don't, then that's your problem, not mine. Okay? And the virus is going to come sooner or later. Everybody knew that. Okay? The conversation as we're having it in the United States today is the only reason this is so deadly is because we've got an absolute raving lunatic in the White House and a band of outright criminals in the Senate who are empowering him to keep that place. And if it were otherwise, if we had a sane person in the White House, say Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or Cheek of the dog was in my lap, somebody who just didn't bother things and said, okay, no, I'll let the scientists all fix this. If we had one of those, that we wouldn't have this many deaths, and that is true. However, the way we would have had fewer deaths is we would have shut the old economy down more totally sooner. Okay? So 2019 would be more completely up on blocks behind the barn and would have been sooner. We would have all quit going out and doing all this waste motion, which powers the whole economy. All the jobs that people aren't doing are jobs which are waste motion. All the things that people can't have are mostly either waste motion or they are things which are unavailable because of the centralized production system that we have. And the idea that we need to maintain, ready to spring back into action, that centralized production system is about the worst possible idea. I started out talking about climate change, and I'm going to keep that, if you'll allow me to. I'm going to hold that thought over here on the side. But besides climate change, what we're going through now is not, this is not the last time. If we manage to restart 2019 or something that looks a lot like it, you know, where everybody has to go to a huge store that 10,000 other people go to, it's 20 miles away. Well, mine's only 7 miles away. And shop, and that from all over the world, from China, from mostly from California, huge amounts of it from California, from Chile, from Argentina, that food is going to come from all those places, and it's going to land in this Walmart, and 10,000 of us are going to go there and buy it. And Walmart is going to sell all that stuff at a microscopic markup, but they have such a total control over all of us, because this 10,000 I'm talking about, that's just around here in Richmond, and that's not a big enough number. Richmond has 6,600 people in it, and this is, I live in rural Richmond, and it's densely populated out here. I mean, it's all small holdings now, and a few big farms. But the big farms are 600 acres or 900 acres, you know, and the bottomland of big farms are 12,000 acres, you know. So this county is still relatively densely populated. And we all shop at the Walmart because there's basically nowhere else to get food. If you want to eat or wear clothes, and you don't want to drive a 100-mile round trip to obtain that, you get it at Walmart. That's 2019. That's the economy you're telling me we need to restart. And so probably in real numbers, 25,000 people, at least 20,000 people shop at that one store. You can't do anything. You can't. Every time a new virus evolves, which has always happened and will always happen, don't talk about getting rid of the bat, the blah, blah. We live on planet Earth. Human beings are going to come into contact with other parts of planet Earth. Viruses are part of planet Earth. Evolution is known to work. If there is a resource that is not being consumed, something will evolve to consume that resource. There's almost 8 billion human beings on this earth. That's a big resource. Things are going to continue to evolve to consume this resource. We need to make peace with that fact. We need not to find some way to make it not happen. We need to make peace with it. This economy, right now, today, this is a regular part of an inevitable cycle where over and over and over forever, until climate change kills us, there will be new viruses. And there will be two choices. One will be that millions of people can die, or possibly billions, and the other one will be that we shut down the whole economy and somehow snake through it. We need an economy that will run all along. We need an economy that will just go chug, 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 chug. I got an 8-inch Ford tractor out here, the 4-cylinder flathead. You know, it was built in 1949. It's 2 years younger than me, and I do a little work on it, you know. But if I need to go out and do something that is not convenient for me to do with the donkeys, like rake hay, I haven't figured out yet how to do that with my donkeys. I will, but in the meantime, the 8-inch tractor pull about the same as 2 donkeys, and it goes out there and it goes chug, 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 chug at a walking pace, and it will do that forever. We need an economy that's an 8-inch tractor, because these Lamborghinis that we're driving, they don't make it across these country roads, and they definitely don't make it over the big bumps that a pile of coronavirus dead bodies leave. So what we need to do as a people is we need to say, all right, we must feed everyone. Right now, today, we have this deal where all the money machine is broken, and people are already being evicted, but we can't evict everybody. It's we have to do something. So what we have to do first, the number one thing the government needs to do, is they need to provide a way for everyone to stay in their houses. This has nothing to do with the companies you used to work for. Giving money to the companies you used to work for isn't helping. Those companies are broken. They're not working. It's not my fault that they broke. They had a business plan which was not tenable in the real world. And the idea that we need to take infinite quantities of public money and use them to keep these people in business when they have a business plan that doesn't work in the real world is stupid. What we need to do, call it anything you want. Call it communism, call it socialism, call it, my God, we're in trouble. What we need to do is we need to make sure that everybody can eat, drink, have shelter, be warm and safe for at least 18 months. That's the best guess that anybody who is a realistic scientist that I have ever read would give you on creating a good, safe, reliable vaccine from here. Okay, in 18 months, I don't care if all the airlines are still open and have offices with people in suits in them or not. They're not paying the people to stay home. The idea that we should take $1 trillion in government money and give it to taxpayer money, made up money, imaginary money, created debt, all that magic money, we're going to take $2 trillion of that and we're going to give it to a bunch of people who are just richer than Pharaoh. We know for sure that the people we're going to give this money to literally own more than the bottom half of everybody in this country at the same time put together. We're going to give those people $2 trillion so that they can pass $200 billion of it on through so that people can be fed and have roofs over their head. Only it's not going to come in time, and it's not going to be enough, and people aren't going to be able to afford to buy food, and there aren't going to be roofs over their heads. I volunteered at an animal shelter. I don't actively. My wife does, and then I'm the maintenance man. I go up and fix stuff if something breaks. So that's all I do. She does all the work. But we volunteer for this animal shelter. I mean, animal shelters nationwide are just being covered up. People got no jobs. They got no money. They can't afford to go buy dog food. People are giving up their dogs over this. And we're talking about giving money to people who own jet planes. What we need to do, and we need to do it now, we need to do it fast, is we need to make it so that everybody can eat, keep the lights on, keep a roof over their head, and live. Now, the thing they call a universal basic income is the obvious solution. They don't want to do it because they know if they ever start, they'll never be able to stop. So I'm going to take a minute here and I'm going to talk to you about what that's like. You know, the question is, will everybody just sit around and do nothing? You know, we'll give everybody all this money and everybody just lay on their ass and do nothing and go, give me another beer. That's not how it works. Humans don't do that. You know that? I live on one of those. By virtue of being a disabled veteran, I have the following things. I have enough money to live on, and I have all my health care taken care of. I don't have to worry about it. I just go someplace and they fix my broken body and send me home. Nothing. That's it. Okay. That's it. I don't get a whole lot of money. You know, I don't go around here living like a rich man, but I get enough money that I can keep the lights on and I can keep the heat on and I can keep the refrigerator full and I can keep gasoline in the car, which is a lot easier now since I never leave the farm. I get enough money to live a decent life, a modest, decent, comfortable life. I consider it to be fair. I have no complaint. I think the federal government, as a disabled veteran, 100% disabled veteran, I'm unable to work. I have a hole in my brain. The times I allow you to see me is the times I'm all right. I'm not always all right, and I can't go out and have a regular job like other people have because I'm not always all right. So I get enough money to live on. And what do? Do I lay around the house and drink beer and bitch? No, I take my money and I buy chestnut seeds and I plant them to make my ground more healthy, and I get these donkeys and I start learning how to work with them, and I start teaching people things that they're interested to know. This is what I do because I'm a human being and I don't have to worry about the necessary resources of life. As a human being, I need to do stuff because human beings are not built to just sit around and do nothing. So I do stuff. And we evolved, we know this, we evolved to interact directly with the earth. That's where we got all our food, that's where we got all our water, that's where we got all our sustenance, was directly from the earth. And so we evolved so that would be fun for us because being alive is fun, you know? And so since I have what I must have, then I can go out and interact with the earth and I can see, well, it's obvious that we've broken the earth, you know, that this thing could produce so much more food and water than we're allowing it to do that you can't imagine. I mean, my neighbor, I live right next door to a big old commercial soybean field, and it's just a desert. I mean, the mathematical game that makes a modern crop field look like it's productive and successful is just as crooked as Donald Trump's presidency. I mean, it's bullshit. You can produce, we got 28 acres over here. We could produce way more food than he's producing, just vastly more. We could produce enough, and his place over there is a desert. I mean, nothing can live in it. You know, there's no wild turkeys, there's no deer, there's no foxes, there's no quail, there's no nothing. Everybody goes around and shakes their head and says, I don't know what's causing all this extinction. I think it's climate change. 55% of this country is dead right now today. Just dead. There's nothing alive on it. And the question is, how do we get that restarted? And the answer is, that's the worst idea I ever heard. You know? Anyway, what we need it all over the country. We need it in every rural county, and we need it in every urban block, is everybody has to be able to eat, sleep safe, have a roof over their heads for the next 18 months while we get through this virus. That is the number one objective the government should be doing. Don't let them talk to you about keeping businesses open. Businesses can't help us for at least 18 months. Any business that can't earn a living today cannot help this. The people of the United States cannot help the economy of the United States, cannot help the health of the United States. They cannot do anything. They have a failed business plan. It doesn't work in the real world. That's not something that you take a government and support forever. You know, I expected their business plan to fail, and I've said so publicly. But it is not I who made it fail. If they can't make a buck today, it's not my fault. This is the real world. This virus evolved right here on planet Earth, and we're not getting away from this. If this economy can't stand this one, it can't stand the next one, it can't stand the one after that. And in between times, if we prop it back up and start turning that handle as fast as we can, all we get is climate change. And if the virus don't get us, the climate change will. And I appreciate y'all coming along. I'll talk to you again on another day.